The whispers of my name still echo through the hallowed halls of justice, where I once stood accused alongside those most detestable creatures, rats. Yes, you heard me correctly, rats. Those furry fiends with their twitching whiskers and beady eyes were put on trial in the Middle Ages, and I was there to see it all unfold. As a young apprentice to a local blacksmith, I had always been fascinated by the world of law and justice. My master, God rest his soul, would often regale me with tales of the trials that took place within the city walls. He'd speak of the most heinous crimes from theft to murder, and how the courts would mete out punishment accordingly. But nothing could have prepared me for the day when rats, those seemingly harmless creatures, were brought before the court. It started with whispers of a mysterious infestation that was spreading like wildfire through the city's underbelly. At first, no one paid much mind to the tales of scurrying rodents and putrid stench. After all, what harm could a few rats do? But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the problem only grew more pronounced. The once proud homes of our merchants and artisans were now infested with the creatures. Goods would be stolen, stores ravaged, and the very fabric of our community threatened by these uninvited guests. The people cried out for justice, demanding that something be done to stop this scourge. And so, the city's leaders saw fit to convene a special tribunal to deal with the rat problem. I remember the day the trial began like it was yesterday. The sun beat down upon the cobblestone streets as I made my way to the town square. The air was thick with anticipation, and the whispers of rat seemed to carry on the wind itself. As I arrived at the makeshift courtroom, I was struck by the sheer number of rats gathered within. They were packed tightly into cages, their beady eyes fixed upon the proceedings. The trial began with a stern-faced judge, his voice booming through the square as he outlined the charges against the accused. "Thou art guilty of theft, filth, and general nuisance to the citizens of this fair city." The rats, seemingly unfazed by their predicament, merely twitched their whiskers in response. I watched with bated breath as the prosecution presented its case. Witnesses came forward, sharing tales of ravaged stores and stolen goods. Experts testified about the damage the rats had wrought upon our city's infrastructure, the crumbling walls, the tainted water supply. The evidence was overwhelming, leaving little doubt that these creatures were indeed guilty as charged. But then something unexpected happened. A young rat, seemingly the leader of the group, stood up and addressed the court. Its voice was high-pitched, yet piercing in its intensity. "Your Honor," it began, "we are not the monsters you take us for. We are but a symptom of a greater problem, a city that has forgotten its own decay and neglect." The courtroom fell silent as the rat's words hung in the air like a challenge. I recall feeling a pang of empathy for these creatures, so maligned and misunderstood. The judge, taken aback by this unexpected turn, demanded to know more. The rat continued, "We are but a small part of a larger ecosystem. We eat what you would have thrown away, scraps and leftovers that would otherwise rot in the streets. And yes, we may steal from your stores, but only because they are often overflowing with bounty. You call us pests, but perhaps it is time to re-examine the true nature of our relationship." The courtroom erupted into chaos as the people began to argue among themselves. Some cried out for justice, while others called for mercy. The rats, sensing their chance, launched a desperate bid for freedom, scurrying up the walls and across the rooftops. In the end, it was decided that the rats would be banished from the city, forced to make their way in the surrounding countryside. I watched as they disappeared into the unknown, wondering if this was truly the just outcome. As I left the courtroom, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for these creatures, so maligned and misunderstood. Years have passed since that fateful day, and I've often thought about the rat's words, "You call us pests," but perhaps it is time to re-examine the true nature of our relationship. As I look back upon those tumultuous times, I realize that their trial was not just a condemnation of the rats themselves, but a reflection of our own society's ills.